Whiskey is booming. Once the drink of gruff old cowboys, today whiskeys like bourbon and rye are surging in popularity with young Americans. Nearly 130 new brands were introduced last year alone. Most popular are the so-called handcrafted bourbons. But there's a dirty little secret in the distilling industry. Many companies don't make what they bottle, even though their labels give the impression that they do. Templeton Rye Whiskey's label, for example, says it's produced in Templeton, Iowa, using a recipe dating back to Prohibition. But in fact, Templeton and many other brands are actually made at this massive plant in southern Indiana. So these barrels are all full of aging bourbon.
That's correct. Each one of these holds about 63 gallons.
A former Seagram's distillery, it's now owned by MGP Ingredients, which sells its whiskey in bulk to dozens of smaller companies who then add their own finishing touch. MGP sends out nearly 300 barrels every day. Gus Griffin is MGP's CEO.
People want to take your product and in some cases give the impression that they made it. Is that bad? Is that cheating?
I prefer to think of it as them taking our product, because we make a good product, and using it as the backbone for their product. So what they do with it is really up to them.
On a small farm in southern Kentucky, Paul Tomaszewski and his wife Mary Beth make their bourbon, MB Roland, the old-fashioned way, from scratch.
We put on our label mashed, distilled, and bottled by MB Roland Distillery. And part of that is because we don't want anyone to be confused and ever question, did you make this?
Federal regulations require accurate labels, but they're often vague and there's little enforcement.
When it says bottled by on the label, what does that tell you?
It says it was bottled by them.
And that's all?
Correct.
Doesn't mean they made it.
If they made it, they probably put it there proudly like we do.
Templeton recently said they will change their label to make it more clear, but in the murky world of whiskey, Tomaszewski says consumers would be wise to take what's written on some labels with a grain of salt.
Sir. Cheers.
Chip Reid, CBS News, Pembroke, Kentucky.
Oh yes,